Today's show is brought to you by StreamTech Drift Boats, the world's most versatile drift boat. Find them at www.streamtechboats.com. I kind of feel bad for these people, but at the same time I don't because they're stupid.
Don't see a circle around yourself, just start pissing everywhere.
Oh, I hate the Dutch.
Welcome to our country, and so
she doesn't really look Canadian. She looks almost American. Just insulted all of Canada.
Oh, every time I see something up, and you got If I'd known that before, I would have just interspaced every other sentence with something horrible.
Well, I haven't felt my feet since I sat down in a chair.
Can you see your feet, though?
No. I'd rather do anything else on the planet than go tip a cow over.
How about Canada? Is there any stream access issues up in Canada?
nobody cares.
Not very much.
Kids, if you don't understand that joke, ask your parents.
Evan, Derek,
Yeah.
Oh, God, here it comes.
your flies are open.
Thanks.
Grab hold of your flies. This is a podcast for nymphers, strippers, swingers, and dry fly guys. It's the show that brings you stories, instruction, and conservation from three guys who live it every day. This is The Open Fly.
Is this thing on? Can you hear me?
Microphone check 1, 2.
Kurt?
3, 4, 5.
Actually, no, pick your mic up a little bit.
Oh, 3, 4, 5.
There you go. All right.
That mic.
So everybody can hear. We're good.
Good.
Yeah. For those of you who didn't hear the show last week, which would be everybody.
It was hard to listen to.
Yeah, you couldn't hear it.
Raise your hand if you can hear us now, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if
That was embarrassing.
Well-
I'm the one that claims to be a professional at this recording thing, and
We'd been experiencing a bit of a podcasting drought.
yeah.
Our skills were rusty.
It wasn't the skills that were rusty. It was legitimately the equipment that had gotten rusty.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
But I spent some big money on 2 or 3 new mic cables.
And they are nice.
Oh, yeah.
Here,
I've not seen a mic cable as fine as the ones that you have for us now.
Actually, these are like the cheapest mic cables on the market.
Can you
It's all about impressions and first impressions.
They don't.
zoom in on that?
Yeah. So here we are again. This is probably the closest we've had 2 shows in quite some time.
Yeah.
But after the last one, I was like, we gotta not wait 2 months before we do another show after that. And it sucked too because we actually put together a really good show, but nobody's probably going to listen to it.
Yeah, we had big time guests. I mean, well, we brought out the brass for that shit.
And nobody's going to know how funny we were.
Maybe we should publish a transcript.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who wants to volunteer for that?
It's kind of like listening to mimes on a podcast. It loses some of its allure when you can't read.
How do you know that show even starts?
Exactly.
There has to be a narrator.
Hearsay.
It's hearsay.
Hearsay.
So, anyway.
Yeah, so there we were yesterday,
Oh.
hiking down the dusty trail.
Oh, so this is an actual story.
Actual story, we were snorkeling.
Things that happened.
Yeah, we were snorkeling on the Cooper. Looking for salmon and looking for
This
trout.
isn't a spot burning show.
It's not a spot that can be burned. It's not on fire right now, which is good, which is rare here in the state. But
That'll make for a great segue.
But you can send everybody there.
Yeah, well,
because
it's-
hey, there's a river that's not on fire right now. Let's go there.
Let's stay focused.
yeah, it's not one of those places where you got to be worried about it too much. Everybody knows about it. But so we hiked down 4 miles, left a vehicle up at the top of the trail and a vehicle at the bottom of the trail. And the plan was to walk, swim, snorkel down towards the bottom vehicle, which is 5 miles away. We get 4 miles down, and we start looking for the keys for the vehicle at the end of the trail. Keys cannot be found.
Did you pat him down real good?
Oh, it was a full search.
Strip search?
Cavity search?
I wouldn't go that far, but it was thorough.
I would if I was looking for keys.
It was very thorough.
Okay.
Oops, I just accidentally keystered my keys.
Right. So the decision point was, do we walk a mile down to the vehicle and knowing we don't have the keys and having to find a ride back up to the upper vehicle, my truck, basically hitchhiking in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Fairly low odds.
Yeah. So you had a choice to make.
I had a choice to make that we could walk back upstream through the river 4 miles, and we were in a little bit of a time crunch. We didn't have all day to do this. And then the decision was, if we walk straight up that cliff here to our right, the trail's only up there about maybe a quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile at the most. That's the fastest way to get to the trail. So there was a point yesterday where I was using a snag, a fallen tree. When a tree falls, it's called a snag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was using the limbs as ladders.
Climbing up this thing.
Yeah, it was almost like a CrossFit thing.
And you were snorkeling. So
Yeah.
what did you have for footwear?
Just my my. Oh God, what are those sandals called?
Neoprene booties?
No,
Tevas.
Chacos.
Chacos.
Yeah, I have a couple of cuts on my foot.
Yeah.
But fins to swim the holes. Tennis shoes would also work.
But
as
you
well.
weren't climbing the snag in your fins, right?
No, I was climbing the snag in my Chacos.
Okay.
Vertically up this hill. So we get to the trail all the time thinking, okay, where's this key going to be? It's probably lost somewhere between the upper 4 miles we've just swum. So we get up to my truck, and laying there in the dirt is his car key.
Very nice.
Cool
So-
story, Hansel.
How many miles did you shave off by climbing this cliff?
None.
None.
We went vertically up. So we were inverted almost.
But you saved.
But instead of walking around the hill, you went straight up it.
Yeah.
Did you save time?
Yeah.
How was the danger factor?
High
Yeah.
danger factor.
So you were in a zone that could be described as dangerous.
Yes.
What would you call that?
Dangerous.
Well, we were very close to a highway though. But we were on a dirt road close to the danger zone.
All right.
And if you took one misstep or a snag branch were to shatter and send you plummeting, how much of a vertical fall would you have encountered?
If you can see my hand right now,
Yeah.
it's at about 70 degrees. Yeah.
So no stopping.
No stopping.
Snakes?
Yeah, snakes everywhere. Spiders. No bears.
No bears.
Wolves.
Horses.
I wouldn't worry so much about horses on a 70-degree slope, though.
On the top of the trail, though.
Oh, yeah.
When you see horses coming, you have to keep talking. People usually clam up, though.
Yeah. How about cows?
Oh, God.
Free rangers.
Oh, yeah. We saw there was some proof and evidence of free range cows.
Count Kirk out. He's not going there.
I'm out.
But I can get you there safely and back without seeing cows probably next time. But we're leaving car keys in a very specific space.
Okay.
Good
So,
call.
yeah. Anyways, what we did see on the snorkeling, we found some salmon.
I like snorkeling.
Nice.
Yeah, I found some salmon. I mean, in this pool that's probably 30 feet deep, and you have to look down, you can see them in the water. But it's amazing that these big fish. We were talking.
Kings?
I would assume sockeye, but could have been kings.
Well, how about that?
I hiked about a mile into a spot yesterday and saw salmon, and none of them would eat my fly, which is rare for me.
So you went fishing.
I did.
Oh.
I tried.
Donkey
Mm-hmm.
Kong.
It was my first river trip for pink salmon this year, and they were all over, and for whatever reason, were being tight-lipped, which is really rare.
Are you using pink flies?
Sometimes white, peach, orange. It doesn't. Despite what the marketing tells you, they will eat any color. Pink is just what's really easy for the tackle shops to sell.
Well, it corresponds nicely with the name of the salmon.
Yeah. We were out on the Puget Sound on Saturday, Sunday, and I was catching them on black and red and olive, and it doesn't matter.
You also harvested some shellfish, if I'm not incorrect. Crustaceans?
Crustaceans? Yes, some Dungeness crab.
Yes. I also did.
Those were not caught on the fly.
No. No.
What is it called when you eat salmon with crab on top?
I don't know, Derek, what?
Well, when you have steak with crab on top, isn't it?
Surf and turf?
Or Delmonico, or where is it?
I'm not familiar with the term.
I think you're thinking of the surf and turf. So salmon with, that would be surf and surf.
I think surf and turf is actually steak and lobster.
Yeah, but we don't believe in lobster in the Pacific Northwest, so
You don't need to.
no,
Evan
Dungeness
and I
crab
were
is.
discussing this. Dungeness crab beats Alaskan king crab and New England lobster hands down.
And you know what's even better than that, but is a giant ass pain to eat and doesn't have much meat on it, is the red rock crabs we have locally. Those are even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you risk taking shrapnel when you crack their shells. It's bad. They're almost not worth it.
You get pretty good bang for your buck with a Dungeness.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Dungeness, did you see the story in the Seattle Times last Sunday about the rescue efforts taking place on the Dungeness?
There's rescue efforts and things burning down and things. So many things happening in the state right now. I can't even keep track.
Here's where this gets funny, is that if you go to basically any stream that's low right now and warm,
AKA a blue line on the map.
aka blue line on the map, State agencies, WDFW, try to limit everybody saying, if you see people building rock dams or if you see rock dams in existence, take them out because they're creating, impassable barriers for fish. It slows down the water, it makes it warm, and they can't get in and out of these things. They get trapped. Mm-hmm. Bad for the fish. On the Dungeness, there are actually people in the water making the channels deeper by removing rocks and building walls and creating pools to make it easier for the salmon to get up and out of the river.
Do you think that's good or bad? Because, the standing pools will warm up faster.
The idea is that the water is so low there and there's no passage for the fish up and through there.
So it's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative.
You're creating some holding water.
Creating some channels of passage.
I gotcha.
The funny part of that message is that don't build rock dams because it's bad for fish, but on the Dungeness, they're building rock dams because it's good for fish.
I've been seeing people ranting about rock cairns.
I think it's just because people get annoyed by them.
Yeah, I don't see them all that often, and when I do, I figure they're either just the work of some bored kid, or if you're in the backcountry, somebody has to actually use it to mark a location.
I've hiked a few times this year, and I haven't seen a single one.
That's the proper use of a cairn is to mark a trail or a passage point. Now it's just a matter of people going out there and building rock castles in the rivers. There was a young woman doing yoga on the rocks at the swimming hole that we were on yesterday, just because and there was somebody taking a picture of her doing it.
Was she hot?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was hot out, but I can't make a decision on whether or not she was hot.
That's too bad.
She looked warm because it was warm out.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people like to
it's something.
Commune with nature, find their center.
Do you find that would be more like if you were to go hike into a place that you thought was pristine and no one had visited before, would you consider that the same sort of visual garbage as, say, a broken bottle or a cigarette butt? Or is a rock cairn?
It is. I don't know. A rock cairn, I don't put on the same level because you can kick it over and no harm, no foul. But
it's not littering.
No.
And if you want to consider it visual pollution, that's a matter of perspective.
Is it art?
No, it's a work of somebody with too much time on their hands. I'm not saying some art isn't the result of too much time on one's hands, but I think it's just, I don't know. I think it's silly.
Well, idle hands spend time at the genitals.
No, idle hands are the devil's.
Yeah. Well, you know how much God hates that.
The devil's genitals? Yeah. I think Kirk's body language right now is telling me that he's really upset about it. He's got his hands crossed across his chest. He looks
that's how he keeps from being tempted.
I'm supporting a bad shoulder. I was thinking, I'm not offended by rock cairns, but if people started carrying garden gnomes with them and leaving them about the river, that would be a little out there.
Maybe what if people started taking life-size wooden cutouts of Sasquatch and putting them in the woods?
Well, that's different.
Yeah. That's somehow...
it's right. Different. We don't need to elaborate. That's just different. Yeah.
So what else is going on?
I don't know. I went to Utah last week and made some new friends and did some good fishing out there.
Yeah, the Heber Valley Fly Fishing Festival.
I did, yeah. Stayed a day late, or a day afterwards, and I fished the day before the festival and the day after, and got to, like I usually do when I go there, find a local to show me some secret blue lines on the map that, most people don't know about.
Nice.
Cut some browns.
Very nice.
The thing that sticks out to me the most is that somebody posted a picture of probably the most glorious mullet I have ever seen. Do you remember?
Oh, that was our guest today is who posted that picture.
Yeah.
I want to.
Well, he took a picture. There was a couple mullets there. He took a picture and posted it the first day of the festival, and I was like, wait, that was not the mullet of the day. Like, that was not the one that I'm going to remember from this festival. And after he basically went around and asked around the festival to see if anybody got a photo of like this really epic mullet, and turns out somebody did, and so he posted it. So
that was an inspiring mullet.
Yeah, Gabe Parr / the Trout Bus is who we were talking to today. Look him up on the interwebs, Instagram or Facebook, and you can find this mullet posted on there.
While you're listening, because it's coming up. I mean, the story behind it is coming.
Yeah. This was one for the ages. I mean, I've seen some mullets, but this one was...
This was beyond mullet.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't just have a mullet. He spent probably an hour every day styling this thing.
Curly and just...
The pompadour.
Yeah, it was like a pompadour with a mullet. It was the 1950s with a waterfall. You know, it was solid. So anyway,
That was memorable.
it's too bad we don't have a picture we can hold up to the camera because it's that good.
Well, they have computers and phones and things.
Do we have permission? I mean, you go out and you can take a photograph of anybody. Do we have permission to actually put that on the page?
Sure.
We'll ask Gabe.
We'll get Gabe's permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to post it.
Yeah.
We'll use that as our promo picture for this episode.
Business up front. Huge party.
Yeah,
in the
huge
back.
party in the back. And big,
Well, this one was
big business up
the
front.
thing about this one. It was partying up front too, and that's part of what made it good.
But it wasn't a dance party.
No,
This guy, it's like he rode into town hard and rode out hard.
and the guy leaves home every day with a dozen fucks and comes home with 12.
None to give.
Gave absolutely zero during his day.
Don't even ask me for a fuck because I don't even know.
That describes this guy pretty well.
nutty.
A belt, perhaps, of across, and you can see them, but you're like, I know you're not giving any of those up because you have them proudly displayed.
Oh, man. Solid.
Yep.
Hey, let's go back and circle around on the wildfires thing. So we last year we had the Carlton Complex fire in north central Washington that was a devastating fire.
And we had some guests on the show.
We did, and now those same people living up in that area are dealing with another brutal fire or fires that seems like those things just came out of nowhere in the last couple days. And they're evacuating Winthrop and Twisp, and
this is like 2 weeks after everybody was like, the fire season this year, it's not ideal, but it's not as bad as we thought it would be.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, it could have been so much worse, but it looks like we're going to kind of get out of this. And
nobody knocked on wood when they said that.
no, and now in the last few days, the entire freaking state's on fire.
Yeah.
Except for the town of Duval and the Cooper River, apparently.
Apparently. Knock on wood.
So continue your story, sorry.
Well, anyway, that area burned so bad last year. I'm surprised that there's any fuel left. It must obviously be in a slightly different area.
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff left. I went up and down that valley last year, during steelhead season, and there was plenty that didn't get hit, but I mean, there was whole areas that were completely torched. The Black Canyon area is one that's on fire again, and that's one that I remember specifically last year driving by, which was completely torched. So I don't know how that's burning again.
Sagebrush,
Sagebrush doesn't really burn. It kind of sort of does, but I wouldn't call sagebrush really fuel. It's the grasses and the pine trees, those dry pine, like ponderosas and stuff that are...
Yeah, well, I wonder if enough grass came back just in the last year.
I'm sure.
That was enough.
That's probably a lot of it. Then you got that in the Colville area, and I mean...
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There's a whole bunch. North Central Washington is pretty much just completely on fire at the moment.
Yeah.
Like everything up there is being evacuated. We're talking like an entire section of the state.
And they're getting winds because we have pressure changes now. You look outside the windows of the Open Fly Studio today, and it's in the upper 60s and cloudy and drizzly.
It was like 94 yesterday.
Yeah. And so this marine influence is causing the winds east of here to pick up, I'm sure, and that's bad. So.
Yep. And I still think there's even a fire of some sort going on in the Olympic Peninsula as well.
There was one burning down by on Alaska.
That's not in the Olympic Peninsula.
No, but that's on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
On Alaska?
On Alaska, down on your way towards...
All one word.
On Alaska. Not on the way to Alaska.
It's on the Cowlitz River.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
The place where I go down to go grocery shopping with my fishing poles. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy when the west side of the state, including the Olympic Peninsula, which is the rainforest, catches on fire. Then things are... I mean, contrary to popular knowledge, for people that don't live here, the summers in this part of the state, the wet part of the state are extremely dry anyway. But then this year, our winter rains ended like 2 months early, and we didn't have snowpack, so it's way worse than usual.
Well, and it got really hot in June, and June is usually kind of a transition month.
Yeah, usually.
Sometimes be wet and cool.
Yeah, it's weird. We have like transitions. Like February will be nice and warm and not a whole lot of rain. Then March it goes back to being, kind of wintry. And then April, May is a crapshoot, and June always goes back to like January.
Yeah,
it's like 50s, 40s, and rainy all month. And we had zero precipitation. It was like 90 degrees the entire month this year. Yeah. So that really set the stage for what the summer was going to be like.
So aberrations or part of a longer or a bigger trend here?
I don't know. It seems like the last few years have been trending more and more towards that.
Well, they say it's a
El Niño.
strengthening El Nino, which is a recurring weather
Which is
pattern.
Spanish for the Nino.
Yes, it is.
Little child.
The little shit.
The little child.
Whereas La Nina translates to the bitch. But anyway, we had an El Nino this last year, and it's building, and there's looking like, despite what Farmer's Almanac says, science, El Nino is strengthening, and we're going to probably have another light snowpack this winter,
Oh, boy.
which will really screw us for next year. But the bottom line is, it's a El Nino. We always have those, but it's a super El Nino. So is that an aberration, or is that a sign of the times?
It's like a burrito that's smothered in enchilada sauce.
Aberration?
A super burrito, enchilada style, or wet is what they would call it.
Yes.
A wet burrito.
Yeah.
I would honestly, and I'm not a scientist, but I would say this is, I've lived up here since 1984, off and on.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
That's what the year I was born.
I lived through droughts in other states when I lived there, and places I've lived before and left, they're still dealing with drought conditions, and that was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So, people up here are going to start painting their grass green instead of,
Well, I've lived here since before 1984.
Oh, well, look at you.
And yeah. Our lawn has taken it pretty hard this year. I haven't watered. It wasn't worth it. Can't keep up with it. And, it goes dormant anyway. Well, it went a little beyond dormant this year. Large patches of our lawn I know are dead. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spend a lot of time and money replacing the lawn if we're just going to do this whole thing again next year. I'm trying to figure out how to do an Arizona rock garden in the Pacific Northwest.
Does your HOA allow that?
Yeah, it'll be in the backyard. They
Yeah.
don't need to know.
Yeah.
And I'll spray paint the front yard.
There you go.
Or get the fake grass. AstroTurf.
Yeah, I actually have a friend that did that. He was building a house up against a green belt. His backyard was not going to see more than an hour or two of sunlight a day, so he figured his lawn would just be nothing than a patch of moss. So he put in that field turf in the
All right.
backyard.
That's smart.
Yeah.
So how's this affecting fishing? I mean,
Well,
my personal perspective, I haven't fished on my home water in 3 or 4 weeks.
well, everything close by here is closed.
Yeah.
The Skycomish, I don't think the Snoqualmie's closed, which really surprises me.
There's a couple rivers that were left hanging this year. The
Yeah.
Yakima being the most noticeable
Obvious.
one.
I think it's just that's probably because they know the draw there, the economy around that river.
Yeah, it's definitely an economics thing. We touched on it a little bit in the last show, but if you close down everything else, people still want to have that opportunity. And I think there was probably 2 or 3 weeks of time that passed that there was this consistent push of protect, and there was no action taken because people were still selling trips and they were still selling fishing licenses, and it's still bringing people into town.
So did you have to cancel trips that were already on the books?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I moved them to September and October when we should see some relief from this. But I took an economic hit. A lot of people took an economic hit. We got people scrambling for, what kinds of things can I do on this river? The Hoot Owl, the Hoot Owl didn't close the river, but it certainly did change the way that people fish it, which is good.
Has there been pretty widespread support from shops and guides?
With one notable exception. Absolutely, yes.
Is that the one at the big resort on the river?
No.
Oh, really?
Actually, they were quite supportive from...
Good. That's great. Because they're the most visible one there.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to hear.
It with one noticeable detraction.
Yeah.
So, and that is what it is. It's either that you get on the side of the fence that is thinking long term, or you get on the side of you stay on the side of the fence that's thinking short term.
Yeah.
Yeah, my summer program usually involves a lot of local stuff, within an hour of here. There's kind of a lot of lesser known, let's say, trout fisheries of sorts. And that was kind of my summer program. I never talked about it a whole lot. Most people don't know they exist. Even me saying they exist, people aren't going to find them. So, but there's no water in them. They're too warm. So I've just been spending my summer, like I've talked about before, just down on the Cowlitz River grocery shopping, essentially, because that's a river. It runs super cold. Every fish in there is a hatchery fish. So even so, like there's no shame in putting stress on those. So just been down fishing somewhere where it doesn't matter.
I haven't fished since I got back from Idaho, first part of July. I usually like to chase some sea run cutthroats down Hood Canal, but that water, I mean, we were swimming down Hood Canal comfortably in mid-June, and it usually takes till mid to late July for the water to get really comfortable. Yeah. So I thought, these fish, they're working hard out there in that 72-degree.
Yeah, it's warm out there. Like the Puget Sound typically stays pretty cool through the summer, and I was out on a boat through this weekend fishing for pink salmon, and that water was really warm. I mean, like mid-60s probably.
Yeah, we were.
I mean, I don't know if that's just like the first couple feet or what.
Well,
I'm sure it is,
but even Puget Sound, and the farther north you go, the colder the influence from the Strait of Juan de Fuca and whatnot. It's never really comfortable. But we had people swimming off a boat last week when we were crabbing, and not me, but
does the swimming interfere with the crabbing? Are they spooky?
You're not going to scare them out of the trap.
I think it's okay.
Never been
salt water is good; it helps get rid of the crabs. But I don't know if it spooks them or it just. Oh wait.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Now, crabbing's a great thing to do out on the Sound during the summer. You just throw your pots in, and go out and fish for a few hours, come back, pull the pots, and good dinner.
It's a passive thing.
Totally. There's nothing active about it.
Can you just sit in a boat and drink beer and watch the crabs come in?
You can.
No, because
if you want to be a little more active, you can use those crab rings where it's not a trap. They just come on top of it, and then you pull
it up.
Yeah.
No, I'm crabbing probably 50 to 80 feet down.
Oh.
So you can't even. I mean, you tie a rope to your pot and it's on a buoy, and you just leave it there. And we literally went like 10 miles away and fished and came back.
You don't use a strike indicator for your crab pot?
Well, it's essentially what it is.
It's like dead drifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mending the lines and
pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, well,
we tried to talk about fish and fishing. We ended up talking about crabs.
Well, they're shellfish.
Yeah, they're in the water. You go crabbing while you fly fish.
You can. I mean, obviously you can.
I did.
Well then,
I don't. I didn't.
No. You swim and watch other people swim while you crab.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how about that?
We were really close there to getting instructional. Glad we're taking a little breather.
I noticed that the lead into our show says that we teach and instruct.
Well, that was made before we recorded our first episode.
Yeah.
But it's not like classroom instruction. It's more like education on issues and topics, and that's sort of it's outreach.
I'm just wondering if it's bait and switch. If people are coming here looking to learn something, like techniques, tactics, flies.
I can talk about how I tried to cast a short shooting head on an 8-weight for the first time in 2 years yesterday in a 15-mile-an-hour side wind.
How'd that go for you?
Not well.
Yeah.
Oh, I also had a really heavy tungsten head fly on there.
But was it on a center pin?
No, it was on an 8-weight.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my center pin's on an 8-weight as well. Sitting over there. It's my 8-weight spay rod.
I have not used that switch I got from you yet.
Well, that's because you haven't been fishing.
Right. But when I do, I will be using that. What was the name of that running line again?
The Rio Grip Shooter.
Grip Shooter.
Yeah, it's a good one.
How's the Seahawk reel selling?
Really good.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. I might like one of those.
Yeah. People are wondering where this conversation is going. He's sitting there holding our Seahawk colored reel that Allen Fly Fishing sells. So
Nice.
Anyway, we should probably go to break and then get Gabe on the line.
Yeah, let's talk about the trout bus.
I'm sure we'll, ramble on then too. So, and I got to put some new batteries in my little recorder thing.
Cool. Let's do that now.
All right, that's where we're going. Okay. We're letting you know before we go. We don't have to ask when we get back.
We'll be back.
3, 2, 1, bye.
This is Derek, and on behalf of Stream Tech Boats, I want to talk to you about 3 factors that I consider really important when you're choosing a drift boat, and that's safety, fun, and performance. These are the safest drift boats around to float out of. They're fun to row, and from a performance standpoint, if you're a professional on the water, all three of these factors are important. So let's take a second to hear from the man who designed the boat himself.
I tried pretty much everything, that just none of them were really doing what I wanted. So we set out to design a boat. I'd call it the one boat that would maneuver like the hard boats, that would go in the really rough places, that would float high, that would have all the amenities that come on a hard boat with anchor systems and good leaning. A very nice flat floor that you can inflate hard, that you can stand on. No bolts, no nuts, no pins, no clips, nothing to put it together. For the reasons that it's so good for fishing, it got this rocker, and so it pivots quickly, and it slides out on the foam pile when you come off big drops. That rocker just climbs right out on the foam pile. A total game changer.
So there you have it. My recommendation, Link's words. Look for us at www.streamtechboats.com. Call Link directly. He'll answer that phone, and he'll get you on your way towards the best drift boat on the market.
Now back to the open fly.
And we're back.
It's good to be back.
You always say that.
Not predictable.
Sometimes it might, I mean, I'm sure there's sometimes where it's not good.
I can't think of one.
Okay. Maybe last show?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know at the time.
Ignorance was bliss.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got Gabe Parr on the line from the Trout Bus. Gabe, it's happening.
Not much. Just hanging out here in beautiful Central Oregon, enjoying the weather. There's absolutely no wind, a bunch of haze. And
you just told us you were watching a movie.
Think about. I was watching Carlito's Way, and you guys said I had to turn it off. Man, that's an epic movie. I don't know why you guys made me turn that off.
And you're trying to paint this
me for this conversation.
Yeah, you're trying to, mislead our listeners and think you're sitting outside and
Trout bus.
actually.
Let's get right to it. I've got a burning question, and I'm gonna hit you with it right off the bat.
Before they even introduce.
All right, here it comes.
Okay, so
there we go.
Your last name is Parr. Is that a stage name, or is that? Come on, you got tattoos up and down your lateral side that are little oval shapes.
I have a friend with last name Fry. We can get them together.
People asked me that before. It's like, why are you so, is your name really last name Parr and you're involved this much with trout? And I'm like, I never really thought about it. I've always loved trout, and I guess, the correlation there is pretty funny for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it was your density to go into the world of trout conservation.
In all honesty, it's better than fingerling.
My last name could have been Smolt, and that might have been a little bit different. But
famous Braves pitcher, but fingerling would have been a little tough, especially in high school.
My buddy Mark,
Mark,
his wife's maiden name was Trout, and that's why he married her.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, so Parr, we're dealing with a real name.
Yes, it is a real name. It's actually a pretty historic name. Actually, it's one of my favorite drinks is whiskey, and there's actually a whiskey that comes out of England that's named after one of my ancestors named John Parr, who lived to be he was purported to have lived to be 152 years old, and outlived the reign of 8 kings. So
wow,
he's actually buried at Westminster Abbey.
Did he fish the British chalk streams by chance with a silk line?
I think he was in the Welsh area, mostly down in Wales. So
carp.
Yeah, probably. Well, so he became an oddity in the historical sense because he never ate anything other than rough bread and potatoes and apples. Then he got taken into the kingdom and was put on display for everybody in the castle there with one of the kings, and ended up dying because they fed him too much rich food, and it ended up killing him.
Huh. Yeah. Well, I guess if you're 152, you're not going to complain about it too much.
Yeah. Well, let's get a little bit into introduction of what the Trout Bus is and what your vision for that is, and we'll kind of go from there, just so our listeners know what we're dealing with here.
All right. Well, I've been involved with conservation groups here locally in throughout the Pacific Northwest for about 7 years now as a volunteer in different leadership roles for Trout Unlimited specifically, and kind of tried to figure out a way to answer the question that all of them come up with, which was how do we reach that 20 to 40-year-olds and how do we get them engaged in some of our issues and bring them into leadership? So after working for many, many years in the marketing and advertising areas of other individualized board sports like skateboarding and surfing and snowboarding, I realized that the way that you have to promote yourself in the ways that are attractive to them, not just a big, hey, here's a grip and grin picture, but also appeal to their sensibilities as far as what they're doing as young families. So the easiest way for me to do that was to start basically a virtual identity called the Trout Bus and go out there and meet people where they are in that age group, whether it's at pubs, whether it's on the river, whether it's on lakes, wherever it is, and just provide them the opportunity to get involved however they can by explaining to them that it's really not necessary for you to have a PhD or a master's degree in education or be a wildlife biologist to get involved in conserving our public areas as far as rivers and streams and cold water fisheries go. It's as simple as, hey, you know, to pick up a bag of trash and carry it out of the river and take it up to the road and dump it off. Well, you just created a conservation project.
Nice. How often do you get into the character of Matt Foley, the motivational speaker? Living in a van down by the river.
I'm working on the stance. The stance is the hardest part of that one, I found, just because I think my hamstrings won't do it. It's a tough one. But I tend to do that with every interaction that I have, and that's the part of the Trout Bus that I think is the most compelling, is that you have to have that one-on-one interaction, just like Matt Foley did in all those skits. While he's doing those things, he's in your face and he's talking to you about things, and he's telling you that it's not impossible. You can do things. It's about motivating people and getting them involved, and the easiest way to motivate them is to lead them into an area where it becomes their idea to do things rather than you telling them to do things.
What's your equivalent of crashing down onto the table and making a grand exit with the Trout Bus? Do you see any similarities there at all, or?
I have. I've actually got some footage of me falling in the river and just getting swept down river. That tends to help people look at me a little bit differently. Just knowing that I'm actually still a human being that will fall down and can potentially kill myself by doing so.
Hey, Gabe, let's talk a little bit about the influence of social media, and that's a big vehicle that you use to get the Trout Bus down the road. And primarily, social media has been used as a way to attract that youth component to conservation and to Trout Unlimited and to fly fishing in general. I mean, if I had a phone right now that was working, I would pull up Instagram, and probably 100 of the first pictures that scroll up would be of people holding fish out of the water, and they've just been sponsored by Joe Bob's Fishing Hat Company. Coming from that industry where images are so powerful and imagery is part of building that stoke, do you see that? Where do you see the imagery for fly fishing going in the next 5 years? Is it sustainable to keep doing what we're doing in terms of that part of it?
Well, first, let's touch on the fact that you don't have a phone, because I saw your post, and I'm wondering whether or not it fell in the toilet or if it fell in the river.
So that video that I posted yesterday, I was using one of those life-proof cases with my phone, okay. And I was taking video under the water, and then as I got up out of the water and was putting it into my waterproof backpack, by the way, I noticed that there was a water bubble inside of my case. So I immediately took it out and tried to dry it off, and it just died. When I got back,
try the rice trick.
Oh yeah, when I got back to the truck, I plugged it in. It came on. I was like, "Oh, sweet."
That's where you messed up.
Is that where I messed up?
Yep.
But it worked. It worked all day yesterday. I turned it off last night. It came on this morning. I was using it this morning, and then all of a sudden, the screen went blank. It's still making noise.
I would have turned it off and put it in the refrigerator or in some rice or something for a day before I even tried to use it.
Mm. Anyways, it's doing things.
That's the trick.
Yeah. Well, will the manufacturer of the case buy you a new phone?
I doubt it, because they tell you this is a waterproof case, but if you intend to put it into water, you may want to reconsider it. Anyways.
So back to the main question there of social media and kind of what the direction is there with a lot of groups. I think businesses as well as consumers as well as conservation groups are all looking at social media as a primary vehicle to reach their target audiences. What's compelling to me is that over the past, 3 years, maybe 4 years that I've been kind of observing this and kind of maintaining a little bit of touch and feel with it, is that more and more of those businesses and nonprofits are trying to create an association between their conservation agendas as well as their business practices to be a more holistic approach to handling fish, to showing fish, and it's not always about the grip and grin. There's a classic instance of Native Fish Society's Keep 'em Wet campaign. There's actually a whole other organization that's kind of spun off from that particular campaign that's being maintained out of, I believe, Seattle now, with Paul Moynister, who did a big travel blog that he did about 2 years ago now. His group has an entire campaign specifically focused on that now as well. But what I think it tends to do is it creates an opportunity for education at the end of the day, and educating people on the proper fish handling techniques. Yes, we're going out and visiting these beautiful places. Yes, it's wonderful to go in there and spend hours and hours and hours swinging a fly or swinging a streamer or casting a dry fly onto a pool somewhere where you're trying to attract those fish. But I think what we're seeing here is a paradigm shift in the message as well, that we want people to go out there and explore these places. We want you to go out and enjoy them. We'll even tell you where they are. Just make sure that you're taking care of them when you're there. And the more handling that you do of the fish to try to get the perfect shot, the less the likelihood is that fish is going to be there for the next person. So I think there's a great shift there from industry as well as from the public in general to kind of try to promote that message. And it's great to see, because for so long, I'm sure all you guys have seen this, is that it's come down to, hey, here's the biggest fish, here's the biggest fish, here's the biggest fish. You're holding out these huge fish that are spawners that are just, they shouldn't be out of the water for more than 5 seconds, but you're sitting there for 10, 15 seconds trying to get the right shot with the right background, and you're just stressing out the fish, and you're reducing its capacity to actually reproduce when you do that. So
yeah. That's why I only take pictures of fish that I've killed. Go look at my Instagram.
Absolutely.
It's a bunch of pictures of me with hatchery fish bleeding all over the place, and I don't care.
And I love people that catch and keep fish. I love that about the activity itself. I mean, you're providing food for yourself, for your family. You put meat on the table at the end of the day.
But I'm not going to go do that on the Yakima River.
Yeah. And there's just certain places where you just, even if you're out there and you're allowed to catch and take, good for you, man. Take them. I mean, at least I know that you're catching, like that 25-pound fish that you just held up there by the gills is going to go home and it's going to get on your plate. You're not going to try to throw it back in the river.
Yeah, exactly. No, my fish that I let go now, the salmon and steelhead, they don't even come out of the water.
There's a lot of people that still, I have friends that roll their eyes. They don't understand the appeal of catch and release, and I explained to them, well, some places you go, you don't have any choice.
Right.
That's the law. That's
how many golf balls do you eat at the end of the day of golfing?
Yeah, but there's.
That's the one that usually makes it make sense to them. Like, okay, now it makes a little more sense. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
But I love to kill fish when it's allowed. And I may not be good at it, but I can fillet a fish, and there's a certain amount of satisfaction in going out and providing for your family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You got to eat, right?
Anyway, back to the.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
No, I say we can get back to your mission, which is changing the culture of the grip and grin. We sidetracked that with my bad attempt at humor.
Well, it's not just about the grip and grin. It's about just getting people involved in any shape or form that they possibly can. There's a lot of groups and a lot of organizations out there that really struggle with their communicating out into that group, and providing a vehicle that, that literally and physically for that to happen by me being in places where I can speak to that age group in some way, shape, or form. It allows me to just let them know that it's not about one particular group. There's a lot of people out there that are doing great work. At the end of the conversation, I say, I don't care who you get involved with. Just get involved. If you want to get involved with Trout Unlimited, do it. If you want to get involved with bass, do it. If you want to get involved with this, that, or the other watershed council, go ahead and do it. The river conservancies, all the people that are out there that are trying to do good work to actually maintain and sustain these fisheries for the future. It doesn't matter to me. I'd love it if they decided to get involved with Trout Unlimited, because that's where my heart lies as well. But at the end of the day, the more people that are aware, the more people that are getting involved in any shape or form, even if they don't go become a member of an organization, but they're actively out there, taking their family out there and making sure that the least that they can do while they're enjoying it is picking up trash, that's a win for me. If it's them taking out their brother's kids and their sister's kids to go out and teach them how to cast, and then teach them a little bit of the conservation ethic while they're doing that, that's brilliant. You guys have just created a conservation education program for youth. You didn't even realize it, and it's really not that difficult. Most of the conversations revolve around how easy it is to just do really simple things. Most people think, it's just this huge time-consuming process of working on this $500 million project, and it's going to take hundreds of hours out of my time. And I got no time because I got kids in school. I got after school. I want to go have fun. I want to have a life, but I want to be involved. How can I get involved? Just do what you do, and bring a couple of people along with you, and it's really that simple.
Yeah, what I find is that a lot of people that aren't into the outdoors, they're not hikers, backpackers, or fishermen and whatnot, they're really ignorant to the state of our resources. And if they just had a little bit of familiarity with things that they could do in a small part, then it would change the paradigm, I think. But it seems like there's such a small faction of society that is even aware of some of these issues, and even smaller percentage of that group doing things about it. So you have to, you got to.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I think one of the key components to that is exactly what you're talking about, which is communication.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that live in a cubicle their entire lives, and they live vicariously through what it is that you and I and everybody else put out there on social media while they're sitting there in their cube doing their 9 to 5. That's what they. Even though they don't get to enjoy it as much as we do, maybe they don't even get to go out there, or they're not part of that same activity group, they still live vicariously through our experiences that we're sharing. And we're going to be responsible stewards of that. It becomes a responsibility in my mind for us to promote that ethic. So that way, when they do have that opportunity, maybe they only get out to go camping once a year with their family. But every message that we've delivered up to that point before they go on that trip has been, hey, just be conscious of what it is that you're doing. Take the time to make sure that you're picking up your trash. Take time to look around and see if there's some kind of impact that's there, and let people know if you see it.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the ways that we can do better as groups that are involved in conservation and trying to get more people involved. That, like you said, they're not hikers, backpackers, mountain bikers that aren't out there enjoying the outdoors. But I guarantee you, the people that just love looking at our imagery, they all aren't part of that demographic. They're also the people that never leave the big city, that just go to the local park and throw the frisbee with their dog. But maybe they're doing a better job than cleaning up their local park at the end of the day, and that's part of the process.
Yeah. So you talk about social media being an important vehicle for getting the message out, but particularly Facebook has become increasingly more difficult to get your message out unless you're willing to pay. So what I wonder is, from your standpoint with the Trout Bus, how has your reach in social media been? Have you been able to get people to take action, or are you seeing a lot of apathy? How's it working for you?
It's working pretty well. I mean, I monitor that stuff pretty closely. I look at different click-through rates, and I watch engagement and reach pretty closely to try to determine whether or not I'm actually having any kind of success. The standard algorithm that's been put out there, and the fundamental changes of the algorithms to increase your post visibility by paying more for it, it has become part of the educational stream for people that are getting into social media as a lifestyle and as a business. But one of the things that is fundamentally clear to me is that the message has to be compelling. The message has to create emotional context for the person that you're targeting. And if you're just a great group doing great work, and you're only out there just saying, hey, come support us and send us money, you're kind of missing the boat. What really creates the engagement is that emotional context that your audience has with you as the person delivering the information. People recognize my stuff, and I don't operate it. I kind of below the bell curve, as it were, with the engagement rates. The standard engagement metric is anywhere from 1 to 5%, maybe as high as 10% on your posts, with the total amount of likes that you have compared to the amount of posts that you do. Well, currently, I have about, on the Trout Bus, just on the Facebook pages, there's probably, I think, well, I'm pulling it up right now, so it's probably about 370 some odd people that have liked the page. Well, my engagement rate on that, my reach on it is usually between 2,000 and 3,000 people a week, and my actual engagement rate on it is usually between 300 and 400 people, where I have almost an exact, the exact amount of likes that I have the same amount of people that are actually engaged with my content, which is kind of odd. It blows the standard metric out of the water because people have connected with me. People see that the content that I'm providing is compelling to them because it may remind them of a trip that they went on. I'm interpersonal with it. I'm taking them along the trip with me. And that's basically the feedback that I get from everybody, is that I love seeing what you're doing because I feel like I'm going along with you. And I've created emotional context for them. They want to see the next post. They want to see the next picture. They're waiting for it to come, and then when they see it, they like it. Yeah. And they read it. And they if I ask them to take action on something, people have taken action. I just recently posted an article on the blog about the recent ODFW simplification process to the regulations for fisheries here. And I watched my traffic on the site blow up over a couple of days, and a bunch of people resharing it and putting it back out there, and then contacting me personally saying, hey, I sent a letter in to voice my concern about that particular issue or this particular issue and those regulation simplifications. So am I creating enough buzz about the things that I'm doing to create a potential impact? I believe I am. And I think, Derek, you and I have spent a lot of time together, and I've tried to help as much as I can with the wonderful group that you guys have started up in Yakima. Now, I don't take any credit for what it is you guys have done up there. Like I said, I basically, you guys asked me to come up and speak and talk a little bit about community engagement and getting people involved, and hopefully what I did when I came up served that purpose, and hopefully it helped to get some more people involved that perhaps were kind of on the fence at the time. But those are the impacts that I try to focus on. Did I create a positive change? Did somebody take action from it, or they just fall in the wrong? I don't post a lot of pictures of me with fish.
Did we lose him? Hey, Gabe.
Yeah.
To fill this empty space while we're getting Gabe back on the line, he's exactly right. I mean, the emotional context that we're going for here in terms of getting people to care about conservation, getting to care about protecting resources. Conservation groups, especially Trout Unlimited, have a hard time engaging.
Derek's in the middle of saying something, so we're going to listen to him talk here for a second. One second.
Engagement is tough. Getting people to join a chapter or a group or a club, that's the easy part of it. The hard part is creating that emotional connection that Gabe is talking about, is getting people to actually act on their own emotions. And it can be selfishly motivated, it could be unselfishly motivated, but getting people to act on those motivations is tough. And I think, and I've got a question here for you, Gabe, as well, because I'm really interested to hear your answer on this one. But think about conservation groups that aren't catch and release. Think about Ducks Unlimited. Think about Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Think about Stripers Forever. Think about groups that someone can get involved in that organization. They can donate their money and their time and their knowledge and their expertise. At the end of the day, they get emotional satisfaction by taking something from that from that work. So if you're a member of Ducks Unlimited, you go out and you sit in a boat for 8 hours a day and you shoot a bunch of ducks, you take them home, you eat them. That consumption helps to close that emotional circle. Gabe, do you think that is catch and release as an ethic, as a responsibility that fly fishermen have? And I think, to be honest, catch and release is really only probably dominant in fly fishing. You don't find as many people that are spin casting or bait casting.
Well, for bass
maybe. But is catch and release sort of an emotional disconnect from the end result, and is that potentially keeping conservation organizations from getting to that next level?
I think there's a combination of factors that are involved. I think that's one of them. But I think it also has to do with, just like what you touched on earlier, the visual representation of the organizations that are involved. When people join, and this is something that has kind of become part of the culture of conservation organizations, you realize that out of 100 people that became members, maybe 10% of them will get involved, and maybe 10% of that 10% will actually take on a leadership role in some way, shape, or form. The rest of that 90% of the people that are part of the conservation group itself, in membership in some way, shape, or form, are buying their conscience off. They want to know that they can spend a little bit of money and clear their conscience by giving some money to an organization that they believe and that they trust is going to do good work with the money that they just gave them. Now, to look at the fishing industry and our cold water fisheries conservation areas, I think because Trout Unlimited has they have the share of cold water fisheries conservation. There's nobody else out there competing with them. Nobody else. There's a lot of other organizations out there, the FFF, Native Fish Society, Northwest Steelheaders. As far as sheer volume of supporters that are part of those groups, they're a fraction of what total membership and total support is for Trout Unlimited. But one of the fundamental flaws in that large organization of Trout Unlimited is that it has, like you said, mainly focused on promoting the ethic of catch and release and mainly the ethic of, or the activity of fly fishing. When you think about it industry-wide, does fly fishing really encompass the end-all, be-all of trout fisher? Not really. There's a lot of people that are out there with gear fishing for trout. Whether they're catching and releasing, whether they're catching and keeping, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But the problem is that visually, they've really promoted themselves as a fly fishing conservation group. Visually, if Trout Unlimited was to put in the same advertisement for a life membership for $1,000, you get $1,000 fly fishing setup, or you get $1,000 spinning setup, I bet you would start to see a shift in support from gear anglers as well. Because there are gear anglers out there that do catch and release, that practice, fairly safe practices when it comes to catch and release. Not all of them are dunking bait using power bait and worms. Some of them are using lures and they're pinching their barbs and they're using single hooks rather than trebles. There's a lot of those guys that are out there, men and women and children out there that are doing that. And they're going out there just for the fun of the activity and not going out to harvest. So I think there's a need there for people to understand that the Trout Unlimited is about the fish. It's not about the gear. It's about the fish, and it's about conserving that resource. So the more that I can promote that to them, I plan on visiting with groups and with people that are just gear fishermen to talk to them about what the Trout Bus is doing and to try to get them involved with some of these issues. And just open the door for them to let them know that these organizations aren't founded on fly fishing. They're founded on conserving the resource. And if you want to be represented there as a gear fisherman, all it takes is for you to stand up and say, I want to be involved, and this is what I'd like to do.
So how do you go about taking the Trout Bus to visit a bunch of spin fishermen that are conservationists? Because obviously there's a lot of fly clubs around the country.
Exactly.
How do you find a collective group of spin fishermen?
Well, you go where they are. You go to. I mean, it's tough to say this, but you got to go to the big box stores. You got to go to Walmart. You got to go to Sportsman's. You got to go to Cabela's. You got to go there, and you got to approach them. And I know I'm gonna get slapped in the face a couple of times. I know I'm gonna get rejected in some instances, and I know that there's going to be some slings and arrows that are gonna occur. But at the end of the day, if I reach one person in that interaction, that's all. That's the only reason why I was there, is to reach out to one person. If I reach 100 people, and I got 100 people that all of a sudden fired up and jazzed up and want to get involved and they want to protect their local fishery, and they're all gear fishermen, that's amazing to me. That would be an amazing result. Do I foresee that happening in the next year? No. But as long as I'm consistent and I continue to go about the process of performing in that way, I think it will create more and more opportunity for these organizations to start getting some support from the gear community.
Let's go back to emotional responses. And how do people emotionally respond when they see the trout bus rolling into town?
It's been funny. I mean, I've been in the panhandle of Idaho, just driving through town, and at a stoplight, and this one kid ran out of his little coffee kiosk, and he ran up to the side of the van and sang on, "Hey, I love the stuff that you're putting up online. That's rad. It's so cool." I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And he just ran out of the store to come say hi. It's great. It's wonderful to get that kind of reaction from people. People driving by and honking, or they've got a steelhead hat on from H&H Outfitters. By the way, let me get this out of the way real quick. I need to thank the people that are. I would love that. I would actually love that, but that doesn't happen as often as you'd think. But what I do want to say real quick is the only reason why it's possible for me to be on the road is because of support from people like the Open Fly Podcast.
Don't go asking our people for money.
And
that's our job.
No. Yeah, you need money too. But the other people that are supporting me, like H&H Outfitters, Blackstrap, the Fly Fishers Placement Sisters, they all believe in this process of what it is that I'm doing, and it's starting to attract other people in the business area to get more involved.
Can we segue that real quick? You're in need of a new transmission or something for the bus. How short are you on that?
Hey, watch the short jokes.
Kirk short? Strawberry shortcake.
No, Kirk has supported. Everybody's supporting in some way, shape, or form, and I really do appreciate the support.
But I want to see if we
can.
Going
to the shop tomorrow on Friday.
I want to see if we can finish that up for you somehow.
Yeah, we got to get the bus back on.
Well,
I don't think you really know what kind of reach we have, but you're about to find out.
Well, it's going to take about $300 to $500 to get the bus back on the road, and right now I've got some money stashed away from some freelance work that I've been doing, so I'm going to be able to get that done. But more importantly than that is what it is that I'm trying to do as far as formalizing the bus, so that way it can actually be a tax-exempt nonprofit program, and that the filing fees for that are about $400. I've got all the paperwork dialed in, and I'm in the middle of writing the business plan and getting all that stuff together, so that way I can start moving this forward and start writing grants and start moving into the next phase of what I envision the Trout bus to be. But it does require some support, and it does require me either going back to work and working part-time and working full-time and doing this part-time, or really generating enough momentum and enough support from the communities that I'm visiting for them to want to be involved and to help keep the bus on the road and keep it moving down and keep spreading the word that I'm trying to put out there.
Yeah. Well, how do our listeners?
It's not a lot of money.
How do our listeners send you money?
They can go right on the troutbus.com website, right on the front page there. There's a little tab that pops out of the side, and it says make a contribution. They can make a contribution there. It goes straight through to my PayPal account for the program, and it helps support everything that I'm trying to do. So, yeah, they can go there and read more about the places that I visited, go take a look at the map of all the places that I visited, look at the different blog posts. I've got gear up there as well. Kirk went out there and bought a shirt right off the website. How was that experience? Did that work out for you?
Yeah. Boy,
I'm wearing it right now.
Darn right. I've actually been wearing it for 3 days now.
We used to do this a lot on the show, but I want to bring it back. If for all of you that donate to Gabe, take a screenshot or some kind of deal where you can send to the Open Fly Podcast at gmail.com your receipt, and I'll give away a rod or reel or something to a winner. Or maybe a couple of you. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but I'll give away something good.
I think for the price of a 6-pack of Tall Boys, for not tomorrow. I mean, don't buy a 6-pack of Tall Boys tomorrow. Wait until Friday, but send that money to Gabe.
Yeah, and I've got some Allen rods and reels that I can spare, and you'll get a new rod or reel.
Right on.
That's
so,
a good idea.
Hey, Gabe, here's a question.
That's great, man. I really appreciate that.
Another question.
You're welcome.
I come with these hard-hitting questions. I don't mean to be that guy, but I have another one for you.
All right.
How do you convince people that you're not just some guy that wants to live out of a van and avoid responsibility? How do you really reach those people that may be naysayers and convince them that what you're doing is truly worthwhile and that you need their help, but it's not just looking for freebies?
That's a great question, and what that comes down to at the end of the day is being able to give them tangible results of what it is I've been able to accomplish up to this point. That's the most compelling thing. When I started the Bend Casting Club 5 years ago here locally in Bend, it was kind of like the pilot program for what the Trout Bus has become. I basically formed what's called an affinity group for Trout Unlimited, with the local Trout Unlimited chapter in the Deschutes, and it was purposed specifically to engage that age range that the Trout Bus is targeting now. In the result of forming that, it ended up creating thousands of hours of volunteer time. We've saved thousands of fish on the Deschutes River by forming basically a bucket brigade in the fall when the irrigation flows stop and the side channels start to dry up on the main stem of the Deschutes. As well as it's opened up doors for other people to become more involved on leadership levels with Trout Unlimited to work on larger programs. Case in point would be some of the flow issues that are going on the flow and temperature issues that are going on in the lower Deschutes and some of the battles that people are facing down there. There's one of our board members went ahead and became a board member of also the Deschutes River Alliance, who's working on things down there. It's created opportunity, and it's shown proven success. I've also been able to go out and work with schools and at a local high school, the local Bad Kids School, which is Marshall High, and take those kids and teach them the conservation ethic as well as the technique of fly fishing. And then at the end of that, all the kids that were involved with the program, the casting club, through fundraising efforts, through our community engagement, were able to buy 20 licenses for those kids and make sure that they could go out the rest of the year and go fishing. And so providing tangible results in that conversation helps to alleviate, I think, that concern that I'm not just out there trying to, live out of a van and live down by the river and go fishing all the time. Truth be told, I haven't let a line in, probably a month. And it's still at season, you guys, and I haven't gotten the line wet yet. And so if that's an indication of where my heart lies and where the work lies, I think that should be telling enough for anybody that loves chasing steelhead.
Yeah, and that brings up another relationship that I've seen you build with Chad Brown at Soul River, and a mission that he's got is different than the Trout Bus, but in the long run, it's really, really similar. He's got a group of kids up in Alaska right now on a dream trip that most fly anglers of means and of ways would love to take that kind of trip as well. Is there the potential for a disconnect between these extravagant trips and these extravagant experiences and what you can do locally on the ground that potentially could work against what we're trying to do on a conservation scale and on a larger picture? Do you see any risks in that?
I don't really see that there's. If you're given the opportunity to educate, I don't think that there's as much of a disconnect there. I think that if you're given the opportunity, like with what Chad's doing, which is an amazing program, and I think he just got back from that trip, and he's been posting pictures like mad over the past couple of days. But when you give that youth the opportunity to get engaged in an activity and also teach them and give them the education for the conservation ethic, the end result of that experience for that child or for that individual or for that veteran that he took out or anybody else that gets involved is profound, and it reaches more than just that one person. It changes lives. It changes the way that families operate moving forward. And that's really the consciousness change that ultimately conservation groups really want to advocate for, is that broadening of your horizons, broadening of your vision of the resources that we're using. Do I think that on a local level it can provide a negative impact? I haven't seen it personally. I haven't seen it had an adverse impact. Everybody's always worried about your spot getting blown up, and you told people about that spot, now they're going there and it's all trashed. Was there a trail going down to the spot in the first place? Yeah? Okay. Was there a dead spot on the side of the bank where people have been standing for the past 50 years fishing the same hole? Yeah. So it's not really an unknown quantity. Providing people access to those areas and giving them the opportunity to go see those areas while they're still in great shape will hopefully foster that thought of leave it the way that you found it. And I think now is the time to really start delivering that message more to people. And as long as we're telling people that that's part of the process of going there, is to leave it the way that you found it, I don't think that we're going to see adverse impacts on our fisheries.
There's a large amount of evangelizing that goes into conservation work. There's a large amount of politicking that goes into this as well. Does the average fly fisherman have an appetite for that evangelization of fly fishing and what we're trying to do for conservation work, or do the politics get in the way? How do we combine those two factors with the long-term goals that we're trying to achieve?
I think we're talking about the separation of church and state here, in my opinion. I mean, talking about fishing is like talking about religion, and talking about politics is talking about politics. It is not fun, and it is messy, and it can be really, really upsetting for a lot of people. I try to keep, personally, those two topics as separate as possible, given the interaction that I'm having at that particular time. If the purpose for me being there is to speak specifically or talk to somebody specifically about specific legislative issues that require a certain level of advocacy and involvement in the politicking part of it, the hope is that I can create language and use language that is not offensive and doesn't stir up those emotions and hatred that can sometimes come from dealing in politics. It's a soulful experience going out and enjoying these places. Last thing that you want to do is introduce politics into it. However, it's part of what it is that we do as advocates. If you're truly willing to be an advocate for the fishery in some way, shape, or form, you have to have the patience to be able to listen to both sides of the argument, and hopefully with your intelligence and your wisdom, you can try to find a middle ground where the soulful experience of what it is you're trying to protect can somehow work with the politics that are involved. Some of the politics issues and the legislative issues take decades to resolve. So that's really where the patience comes in. And as fishermen, as hunters, as anglers in any way, shape, or form, patience is the first thing that you learn when you do this activity. You don't go out there with a guarantee of success. You're not going to attack a legislative process with the expectation of success on the first try. But you have to be willing to continue to educate yourself and to come back with a better plan each time that you go out and you enjoy that experience on the water, and each time that you go in front of somebody and speak, or you put down on a piece of paper how you feel about a legislative issue. So you're doing the same thing. It's just you have to take the emotional context out of the political part of it and use logic. Whereas with enjoying the experience and making sure that it's going to be there for future generations, leave the emotion in it. Leave the emotion in it the entire time that you're doing it, because that's the reason why you're out there. You love it.
Cool.
How about let's talk about mullets right quick. You encountered one of considerable merit when you were down in Utah.
I was also there.
Yes, I did. Yes.
I'm inspired. I want to grow my hair like that.
I've seen you with hair like that. It is.
Tell us what it was like in person to behold that.
I froze. Like personally, I just it was the brilliance. I couldn't even muster the strength to pull the phone out of the pocket to get a picture. That
I was in the same boat.
By a friend of mine up there.
Gabe and I were like right by each other.
Dumbfounded by it.
He like came over to me afterwards and was like, dude, did you see that?
So do I understand correctly the guy rolls in an El Camino?
No. I assume that the guy has an El Camino somewhere in his past or in his present. Yeah.
How big a guy was he? He looked like he weighed about 100 pounds.
He was about your size.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not a big man, but he carried a lot of weight. That hair.
Yeah.
He carried a lot. He carried a lot of presence moving through the entire festival. Everybody noticed him. I mean, it was E.F. Hutton all over again. Man, E.F. Hutton said what, and that huh? Everybody stopped and looked.
Yeah.
Man, that guy needs to be a spokesperson for something because he will get people.
The Trout
I put him up against Trump right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put him up against Trump right now. So.
He should rep tying materials or something. I don't know. So did you talk to the guy?
I haven't talked to the guy, but apparently he's a good customer of our mutual friend up there, Evan. So
I see.
I got a picture. I got a picture from him the other day, showing me him in their workshop there. So they're trying to be sensitive to it, and I'm trying to be sensitive to it as well.
Sure. Well,
so using his photo
if I push it,
huh?
To promote the bus, I don't know. I might have to go get a release from him. I might have to go back to Utah and get a release from him.
So using that photo to promote this episode might not be in our best interests.
I don't know if it would hurt or not. It might. There's not a lot of people that are a fan of the mullet. I mean, I think the other one, the kid that I got a picture of that had the beaver mullet going on, that was stuffing his face with the breakfast burrito. That kid was. He was pretty spot on as well. I mean, he had the camo, top to bottom. He was ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
All right.
Where does the Trout bus head to next, Gabe? Once it's out of the transmission shop.
No, tires are good. After this, I've got a couple of scheduled programs next month. I've got, let me pull up my calendar here. I know that there's the Sun River Fly Fishing Festival coming up out in Sun River here in Central Oregon, as well as I'm going to be attending Chad Brown's program over in Portland. He basically invited me over, said just pull the bus up, throw up a tent, and start spreading the word. You're more than welcome. So I'll be going to that as well. That's going to be a huge event over there. I think he's giving away something like 200 rods to the kids that show up. So it should be a pretty amazing turnout.
Nice.
All right.
Well,
we should try to wrap this up then.
Yeah, hopefully you get that thing back on the road and keep the gas tank full.
Absolutely. I'm working on the version 2.0 of it right now, so.
Ooh. Well, we'll do that on another show.
Yeah, Derek has seen a little bit of that so far, so we'll keep that under our hat for now. Though.
I've been very tight-lipped about that. I've not told a soul about version 2.0 game.
Is it a spaceship?
It's a
spaceship, isn't it?
Listen, I told you I'm not going to say anything.
It is.
Spaceship! Sprinter van with the Mercedes diesel.
There's this mission to Mars.
Hovercraft.
A Mars mission, maybe. I don't know.
Cool.
All right, Gabe, thanks a bunch for coming on. Cool meeting you last week.
Yeah, no.
Keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Gabe.
All right. See you later. Bye.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fun.
Well, see, we ended that interview on a cliffhanger.
2.0.
Don't look at me.
We don't often leave these open to a sequel.
I think I got a sense of what it is. And, right now the Trout bus is really a Trout van.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not even speculate where this is going.
Right.
Anyway. I think that, it's an interesting tie between the Trout bum and then also the way that we get to where we're going. I mean, a person's vehicle is a very personal thing, and we've had discussions about stickers on the backs of trucks, and there's a magazine that has a particular car that has a personality that's very well known. I mean, a particular car shows up in a particular town, and people go, "Oh, hey, look, there's the
Oscar Mayer Wiener."
Yeah, the hot dog mobile. So the vehicle it's an interesting metaphor. I mean, when I first met Gabe in the Trout bus, I think underneath there's some old logo and lettering that says something like the Stanislaus River Foundation or something like that. But it's an old brown 70s Dodge bus. I mean, as the message has grown, as his campaign has gotten a little more attention, now you can see the H&H Outfitters on it and Blackstrap, and there's a Headwaters Matter sticker on it, and it's a mobile messaging machine, which is one of the things that Gabe's going after, is taking the message to places where it doesn't exist and making it stronger and engaging people where they are, so that these things start to make a little bit more sense. It's a multimedia kind of a thing, almost like a time machine, if you will.
Yeah.
What that looks like version 2.0, it's obviously the person who is, the Orvis trout bum isn't the same person that's the trout bum that you might think of otherwise. Not a lot of people can buy an $800 fly rod and be called a trout bum. There's some.
Yeah.
Most of these guys are out there with $50 fly rods and flies they make themselves, and they're just out there fishing because that's what makes them a trout bum. That's what their focus is. I don't know what I do know what the next version looks like, and I think he's got a strong vision and a plan to get there. It's whether or not the message is going to resonate with the target audience. I mean, and that's what this is all, is just a big gamble. I mean, does the 25 to 40-year-old person really want to take the time and the effort to do this conservation work? And to be flat honest, that's the biggest challenge right now in any conservation group, is time.
Yeah.
People will say, I'd love to help, but I just don't have the time. And it's a cop-out, and it's an excuse, because in the 2 hours that you've spent listening to this show, you could have gone out and picked up 400
Hey, now.
But please listen to the show.
Right, but please listen to the show. But that's what I'm saying, is that time is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You
can always make time.
You can make time.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse anymore. It can't be an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Right.
hopefully we'll
time.
get another show on the books here, before a couple months are up again.
Yeah, we are moving into the steelhead season.
We are.
If there are any steelhead out there to catch,
There are.
There are.
Ask me how I know.
Well, I know that you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're there too, because I've seen them when I've been snorkeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that.
Well.
Okay. So let's remind our listening audience, if they contribute to the Trout Bus,
Yeah.
and they take a screenshot or send us their receipt or their PayPal login information, we will put their name into a hat.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't have a plan yet, but somebody's going to get some rods and reels.
Nice.
We always do come through on those.
Usually.
issues,
How about T-shirts? Do we have a T-shirt?
No, I got a whole bunch.
Yeah, we got to put together a package for our friends up in Alberta.
You said package.
Our friends in Alberta have asked, they're doing a cleanup, and they've asked for some swag, so we are sending some your way.
All right. Well, get that from you before you go.
I will.
Okay.
right.
Beauty.
Yep.
Beauty.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for
Until the
having me.
next podcast.
Bye-bye.